Hey, shalom, shalom from your Dutch Uncle John, here to tell you what it is well, last time we did Genesis 1:1, and we beat it to death. But you know what? Today we're going to do another, last time was an hour and 45 minutes on Genesis 1:1. What more could be said? Well, you're going to find out. And hopefully this video, it will appeal to every sector. You'll see what I mean later. Okay, if you haven't seen the first video, I encourage you to go back and watch it. It's called Your Dutch Uncle's Exegesis in Genesis 1:1. Yeah, in Genesis 1:1, in just the first verse. And it does go for an hour and 45 minutes. So let's just do like a minute or two of review, and then we'll move on to the new stuff that's hidden there in plain sight. And welcome back. Okay, remember last time we talked about the Hebrew alphabet? It has 26 or 22 letters. Here's the picture of it. You see, you've got the modern Hebrew, its name, it's the sound that it makes, its ancient symbol. Every Hebrew letter has a picture, its meaning, and each letter has a gematria or geometry value. Okay, so just keep that in mind, or go back and watch the other video. Okay, the other thing that was really cool was the first word of the Bible, Bereshit. And if you plug in each of the symbols for what Bereshit means, it comes out to say the Beit Resh is sun, Aleph is God, Shin is destruction, Yud is hand, Tav is cross. The word spells out the Son of God destroyed with his hand on the cross. He's telling us the whole. That's the Bible story right there in the first word. Another thing to take away from the first video was he likes the number 3 and he likes the number 7. Okay, 3 because he himself is a complex unity. He's one, but he appears different ways. Sometimes he's up sitting on his throne, sometimes he's down talking to Abraham, and sometimes he fills the universe. He shows up in 3 different persons. So if the book doesn't mention Trinity, but complex unity fits, and I like it. In fact, if you remember from the first video, Genesis 1:1, if you just look at the even words and plug in those gematria values, you'll end up with 3 stars of David, each having 337 dots, gematria points. And then the entire verse of Genesis 1:1, that it was the whole verse adds up to 2,701. Just the even words make the 3 stars of David, Mogan David, and the odd words add up to the 10 hexagons that are surrounding this. It's just a beautiful picture of Genesis 1:1. Another thing, if you recall, he's hidden pi in Genesis 1:1. I mean, this is what kind of God does this? I mean, this book was not written by man. My first audience here today is an atheist. If you're an atheist watching this, let me tell you, watching that first video or watching this one, to see what God has hidden in one verse, no, I'm sorry. Man did not write this. This book had to be written by somebody outside of our space and our time. He puts pi to 5 significant digits in Genesis 1:1. That's just unheard of. And the New Testament sister verse of Genesis 1:1, John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, the Word was God. He hides E, the cousin to pi. But maybe the biggest thing to take away from the first video was the first and the last letters of the Bible. The first word of the Bible, Bereshit, the first letter is a bait, it's the B sound. The last letter of the Bible, the last word is Amen in Revelation. The last letter is a Nun in Hebrew. Ben Nun spells son. It's what the book is about, the Son of God. So now let's move on to some new stuff that's still hidden in the first verse of the Bible. That first word, Bereshit, just in that word alone, there are words that point to Jesus, or Yeshua in Hebrew. For example, the first two letters, Beit Resh, is the word bar, which is son. And before you fill my thing with comments saying bar is Aramaic and it doesn't mean son, and let me tell you, I've asked rabbis, what does bar mean, son? Bar means son. Bar mitzvah. It's Hebrew. Anyway, there's Beit Resh. The first two letters of the Bible spell son. Bar is also the word for kernel, like a kernel of corn. A seed must drop into the ground and die before it produces fruit. Okay? This is bar, kernel. The word bara, the first three letters. Bara, son of God. Or bara means created from nothing. The first two letters and the last two letters spell brit. Brit means covenant. In fact, if you take the first two and the last two, we said in the first video, what's the two letters in the middle are Aleph Shin, Aish, the fire. It's the picture of the Abrahamic covenant. You have the fire inside the brit. The brit was the cutting of the animals in half and God walking between them. The word brosh is tree. Yeshua is crucified on a tree. Beit is house. Yeshua is the house that God came to live in on earth. The first letter of the Bible is a beit. It's pointing to the house that God has come to live in. Rosh is their head. Rashit, first fruits. Yeshua is our first fruits. We talked about earlier, Aish is fire. Ashit, I make. Shai is gift. Jesus is a gift from God. Shait is thorns. He shows up in a crown of thorns. And twice in the Old Testament we see God shows up in thorns. There's a thorn bush with Moses, right? That's the first showing up. And so you have God shows up in a thorn bush. And earlier you have a ram showing up in a thorn bush with the Abraham story. The ram is a substitute. And he's caught in a thorn bush. And when Abraham doesn't have to sacrifice Yitzhak, a ram is provided with his head caught in a thorn. So you have a substitute caught in the thorns. You have God showing up in the thorns. And when Jesus is crucified, they put on a crown of thorns because he's a substitute and he's God. Thank you very much. Okay, and the last one, he's the first and the last. He's the Et, the Aleph Tav. Okay, there's that little word in Genesis 1:1 that shows up twice. So that's pretty cool that he hides all these things just in the first word, and they all point to Yeshua. Okay, now, Bereshit is the first word of the Bible. It's also the first book of the Bible. That whole first, we call Genesis, the Jews call Bereshit. And it's part of a larger book called the Torah. The Torah is 5 books of the Bible, the first 5. We call it the Pentateuch, I think in Latin or Greek or something. Or the books of Moses. Okay, there are 5 of them, and they're each named by, when I first started talking to Jews about the Bible, and I would mention Exodus, they didn't know what I was talking about. They had no idea what Exodus was, the second book of the Bible, because they don't use those terms. So the way they name the first 5 books is, what is the first unique word in that book? So the first word of Bereshit, of Genesis, is Bereshit. So that's what Genesis is called. Exodus, for example, is called Shemot, because Exodus begins. These are the names, and they go on to name the sons of Israel that had come out of Egypt. Okay, the third book of the Bible is Vayikra, and the Lord called out to Moses, and it would be sacrilegious to say yada 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 right there. You should never yada yada yada, I think, the Holy Scripture. But you understand, ... The fourth book of the Bible is Bamidbar. We call it Numbers. It talks about that this is when the children of Israel had left Egypt and they were in the wilderness. That's what Bamidbar means. Ba, it means in, the little prefix, and Midbar, wilderness. And the last one is Devarim, or Deuteronomy. Debar is the Hebrew word for word or speak, Debar. Devarim is plural, I am ending, it's the words. And these are God's words that he spoke. Okay? So, it's interesting. In English, if I say Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, it means nothing. But if I'm speaking to a Jew in Hebrew, and I say Bereshit, Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim, they hear that as 5 unique words, which, what am I saying? I'm saying, in the beginning, these are the names the Lord called out in the wilderness, and these are his words. That's kind of cool. God's hidden that in the first 5 books of the Bible. Now, these first five books is the Torah, as I said. A lot of times we translate Torah to mean law, but it doesn't mean law. It means instruction. Okay, so God is not this sending lightning bolts at us. He wants to love us, and he does love us, as unlovable as we sometimes can be. So Torah actually means instructions. Okay, so I want to spell it out to you here, and just so you recognize these 4 letters. Okay, the first is the Tav. We've talked about the Tav in the last video, but the Tav is it's the T sound. Its ancient picture is a cross, and it represents a covenant. If 2 people make a covenant, you draw your line, I draw my line. The cross lines, we made a deal. The cross being the ultimate covenant between God and man. Okay, the Vav is the nail. It's the Hebrew word for nail. Resh is the head. No problem there. That's the first word of the Bible. Reshit, head, the front, the top. And the last one was the Hey. Hey is the 5th letter. Remember, Hey is behold. A revelation, a blessing is coming. Okay, it's something big. It's the 5th letter. 5 always signifies something big is coming. Okay, so those 4 letters make up the word Torah. If you read it backwards, the 4 letters, it actually says, behold, the head man nailed to a cross. That's the picture it makes backwards. So some people think they're going to go to heaven because they keep the Torah. They're trying to keep the Torah this way. They need to look at it backwards. And behold, the head man nailed to the cross. Your works, trying to keep the law, will never get you to heaven. That's why the law was given, so we would recognize the fact, wow, this is impossible. We need to find another way. Oh, here it is. It's the same word backwards. God made it so simple. Man's just made it so difficult. Now, the first word of the Torah we said was Bereshit. The first letter of the Torah is a bait. Okay, let's look at the last letter of the Torah. This would be at the end of Deuteronomy. Okay, 34:12. The last word of the Torah is Israel, and so the last letter is a Lamed. Remember, the Lamed is the shepherd's staff. It represents authority. Okay, but if you put these together, the first and the last, you get Lamed Beit. Now, I put the last first because the Bible says the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So we put the Lamed first and the Beit, and it spells the word heart. That the Torah is the heart of God, the Lev. Kind of nice. Now, something very clever that he's done in the Torah is, here's a Genesis 1, the first 5 verses. And if you can see, I've highlighted it big. There's Torah across the top. Tav, Vav, Resh, Hey. In the first verse, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That first word, Bereshit, the last letter of Bereshit, I made it a big Tav. It's underlined and it's red. Okay? Now, if you jump ahead 50 Hebrew letters, you come to a orange vav that's enlarged. It's not enlarged in the original. I've enlarged it for your enjoyment. Jump ahead 50 more and you get a resh, and 50 more you get a hay, the black hay. So what he's done is he spells out the word Torah every 50 letters in the first book of the Torah. Now, it might be just a coincidence that happens. Very well could be. But when you look at the second book of the Bible, Shemot, Exodus, and it does the same thing. You show up there at the first, second word, it's a tav. Jump ahead 50 letters, it's a vav. 50 letters, it's a resh. 50 letters, it's a hay. It happens 2 books in a row. That's a little suspicious. I go to the third book, Vayikra, Leviticus. It doesn't do it. Whew. Dodge that bullet. But when you get to Numbers, it does it again, but here it does it backwards. It spells Torah, it does the hay, then the resh, then the vav, then the tav. But it's every 50 letters apart. Something strange. And you know, you go to the the last book here, Devarim, and it's going to do it again. Here, though, it doesn't start until down around verse 5. So there's a lot of haze that it passed up before it started. But it did start, and here, instead of 50 letters apart, it's 49 letters apart. It's almost as if he did it a little bit different just to show us that we don't have all the answers. You know, there's just, I don't know what, okay. But when you look at it in whole, this is what it is. Genesis spells Torah every 50. Exodus spells Torah every 50. Numbers spells it backwards every 50. And Deuteronomy spells it backwards every 49. And what would be in the center there is Leviticus. And what does he do in Leviticus? He doesn't spell out Torah. Instead, he spells out Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Jehovah, if you want to Latinize it, Yahweh. It's the name he gave Moses. In Hebrew, it means he is. Okay, it's God's name. So, and he spells it out every 7 letters apart, starting at the first Yud. So, it's as if the Yahweh is in the center, Yehovah, and the rest of the Torah is all pointing into to him. That's the picture there that I see. I hope you do too. Now, another neat thing about the Genesis 1:1, we mentioned earlier that there was a lot of 7s involved. There's 7s all through. We talked about it in the first video. But there is a heptadic structure to Genesis 1:1. It kind of matches up to the menorah, okay? And I do encourage you to go back and watch the first one to see how many 7s we had hidden in there. And we didn't even show you all of them. But just, here's one that I didn't show you last time. We'll show you another one. If you take the place value of the first and last letter of every word in Genesis 1:1, the place value is just, where is it in the alphabet? Beit is the first letter. It's a red one there. It's the second letter in the alphabet. And Tav, the last letter of Bereshit, is the 22nd letter. Okay, so I just put it in the first and the place values of each one. You add them up, it comes out to be 133, which is 7 times 19. Everything's divisible by 7 to the point of, okay? And besides this heptadic 7 structure that's going on, he also has this 3 structure that's going on. He's Elohim, a plural name representing 3 or more in Hebrew. He shows up in the third word of the Bible, Elohim. He creates this trinity of things, these 3 things, time, space, and matter. And each of those are a trinity, with solid, liquid, and gas for matter. Space is length, width, and depth. Time is past, present, future. So he's this triune God showing up third word, making a trinity of trinities. he's got a 3 thing going on. Okay? And because he likes the 3s and he likes the 7s, he also puts them together. And you get things that he does with 37s. In fact, there's so many 37s, you're going to see more tonight. But just to refresh you, last time, the last word of the Bible, of Genesis 1:1, haaretz, it adds up to 296, which is 37 times 8. The 6th word of the Bible, va'et, was 407, which is 37 times 11. And just the combinations of words in Genesis 1:1 that combined to be divisible by 37 is mind-boggling. Here's 9 more. There was 7 more earlier. Here's 5 more. And it continues all the way up to the entire verse. The entire verse is 37 times 73. It's the 3s and the 7s. Now, to point out just in the general, sometimes these things are not right in your face. They're hidden down a level. The Jews have it's called pardes. Each level of studying gets deeper, and it doesn't get into theirs may get into some wacky thinkings, but there's some stuff that God just has hidden just below the level, and it is neat to dig it down and find it. Okay, for example, that word, the second word of the Bible, bara, Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning created God. Bara, created out of nothing, ex nihilo. Okay, that's bara. That word, only God baras in the Bible. It's a verb just for him. Okay, and in Genesis 1, he uses it 3 times. Genesis 1:1, obviously the heavens and the earth. Then in later on in Genesis 1:21, he baras the great sea creature, sea monsters. Okay, and then in verse 127, God bara man. So there's your 3 showing up. He baras 3 times in the first chapter of the Bible. He sees 7 times. God saw the light was good. On the second day, he didn't see anything was good. We'll talk about that later. But nothing was good on the second day. On the third day, he saw it was good when he created the land, and he saw it again, it was good whenever he put vegetation on it. The third day, twice he saw it was good. It's pointing to something in the future. Something special about the third day is really good. Okay? And this is the whole Yeshua is crucified and he raises from the dead on the third day. Let me tell you, the crucifixion is not a tragedy. Jews, everybody, it's not a tragedy. It's a celebration. Thank you. Jews, thank you for finding him guilty, even though he wasn't. But if he had not been crucified, we'd all none of us would have a blood sacrifice. We'd all be going to hell. So God, he came for this very purpose, to die. So don't beat yourself up. You did what you did. That you did what you're supposed to do. Thank you. All right. Anyway, the 4th day he saw it was good. The 5th day he saw it was good. The 6th day he saw it was good. And the 7th day he saw it was good twice. 7 times. So there's again, he baras 3 things and he sees 7 things. And then he goes and commands 10 things, which is 3 plus 7. He commands, be light. Let there be an expanse between the midst of the waters. Go through the 7 days and listen to all the commands he makes. There's 10 of them. Okay? Now, in Genesis 1:1, we had pointed out that there are 7 words and 28 letters. Okay, that's not a surprise. There they are. 28 is, of course, divisible by 7. There's only one more. There's only one other verse in the Bible that has 7 words and 28 letters. That's interesting. In the Old Testament. And that happens to be Exodus 20-1. And all it says in Exodus 20-1 is, And God spoke all these words, saying. And then he went on to say these words. You know what he spoke after that? He made another 10 commandments. Every time there's 7 words and 28 verses, every time there's 7 words and 28 letters, God proceeds to make 10 commands or commandments. That's cool. His 10 commandments are always preceded by 7 words and 28 letters. I'm not making this stuff up. There it is. Now, this is kind of cool. The 3s and 7s carry on. In Genesis 1, the first chapter of the Bible, the first 3 verses contain 3 cubed words. 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 9 is 9, times 3 is 27 words in the first 3 verses. The next 7 verses contain 7 cubed letters. 7 times 7 is 49, times 7 is 343 letters. And the remaining verses of Genesis 1, we've already taken care of 3 and 7. There's those 10 are gone. There's 31 verses total. So there's 21 verses left, which is 3 times 7. So this 3 and 7 pattern, it just is endless, okay, that he's put in there. A beverage time. Everybody still awake? Isn't this fun? Okay. Now, I told you bara, for example, bara, to create, that it showed up 3 times in Genesis 1:1. The word saw, he saw it was good. The word good showed up 7 times in Genesis 1, the whole first chapter. I'm going to take the entire week, Genesis 1:1, it goes through Genesis 2:3. Those are the first 7 days. In those 7 days, that's the creation story. Let's call it the creator story. It's not about the creation, it's about the creator. Okay? So the creator week is the first 7 days. I want to look through and see how many different words, how many unique words did God use to tell this story. We already heard he used the word bara, to create out of nothing. He used it 3 times in that week. Okay? He used the word good. That's a unique word. He used it 7 times. I'm only going to count it once. Bara I'm going to count once. I'm going to go through the entire verse. And here, just the first verse, Bereshit, that's a new word. Count it. Bara, there's the word. Elohim, that's a new word. Et, Hashemayim. Va'et. Va'et is not a new word. We already had et 2 words earlier. So we're not going to count that. I just want to go through the whole book and the whole chapter and find out how many unique words are there. It turns out if you go through, okay, you can see some of these C's, what else? Greater and lesser when he's talking about making the moon and the sun. Appointed times is Moedim, that's a big one. Cattle, the ground, Betzalmenu and Kiddamatenu, those are big ones when he's making man. Okay, you got the idea. It turns out that there are 92 unique words, and words like any form of the word be, we count it once. Okay, if it's a word and then it's a plural, it's 1 word. I'm not if it's a different past tense or future, it's the word, we count it once. So there's 92 unique words in the Creator Week. It just so happens if you grab yourself a periodic table of elements, there are 92 naturally occurring elements on this planet. Yeah, I know that chart goes up to 118, or it might be more. I forget. I haven't looked at it for a long time. Because, you know what? Jimmy cracked corn. I don't care. So, but there's 92 naturally occurring. Uranium being number 92. All the ones above that were made in some lab. Somebody threw an electron out on some outer ring and they named it after themselves, and it's in a petri dish in Berkeley. I don't care. There's 92 unique elements, and God took those 92 and He created the heavens and the earth, and He used 92 words to tell us about it. That's clever. Okay? Now, if we go back to the alphabet, the first letter, a little shift here, the first letter was the Aleph. Okay? And that Aleph, it is just packed with cool stuff. Okay, and it's in Genesis 1:1. That's where it's introduced, so we're going to talk about it. We have here God's name. We already said was Yud-He Vav-He, Yahweh. But sometimes He goes by just the name Yah. Okay, which is just Yud-He. I told you they had the gematria values. We discussed them before. And if I plug them in, let's look at Yah. Yud, He is, Yud is 10, He is 5, Yah adds up to 15. And His full name there, Yahweh, is Yud, He, Vav, He. That's 10, 5, 6, 5. But in the gematrias, it adds up to 26. Keep that one in mind, because we're going to see that one again. Okay? These are His names. By the way, that Yud, He, Vav, He, I don't want you missing this video, missing this part of it. Yud is hand. He is revealed. Something, behold, something's going to be revealed to you. Vav was nail. And then there's another He. Something is going to be revealed. So you put His letters together. This is God's name. This is the name He gave us that we should call Him. And it spells out the hand reveals and the nail reveals. Who's that? Okay. But anyway, I digress. 26 is a good digression. 26 is the total of Yahweh. Then He has titles. His titles are Elohim. This is Bereshit bara Elohim. Okay, the third word of the Bible. This is His power title. And Elohim adds up to 86. And sometimes He goes by just El, the first two letters. El is Aleph, Lamed. Lamed is 30, Aleph is 1, 31 is El. Okay? By the way, keep this, remember, this Aleph Lamed, El. Aleph was the head of the ox. That was the, if you're an ox, you get the horns. The horns is the crown. Aleph, that's the king. And Lamed was the shepherd's crook. And if you're holding the shepherd's crook, that became the scepter. So this is the king, the picture, Aleph Lamed, the crown and the scepter. Okay? And it adds up to 31. Now, what are those four names and titles? What do they have? Oh, by the way, in Genesis 1, the first chapter, He only goes by Elohim. He doesn't go by Yahweh Elohim until man is created. It's almost like he's God, but then when man is created, He's the Lord God. There's someone He can lord over. Okay? So He doesn't use Yahweh till then. Okay. So what do those four, the two titles, El and Elohim, and the Yah and Yahweh, what do they have to do with Aleph? Well, if you go to Genesis 1:1 and start reading, it turns out the 15th letter, Yah was 15, is an Aleph. And Yahweh added up to 26, the 26th letter is an Aleph. And El added up to 31, the 31st letter of the Bible is an Aleph. And Elohim is 86, and the 86th letter of the Bible is an Aleph. Kind of clever. No, it's very clever. What am I saying? Okay, another thing is just look at the Alephs in Genesis 1:1. There's 6 of them. The first one shows up as the third letter, and the second one shows up as the third letter. Then the next one shows up as the first letter of a word, and the next one shows up as the first letter. And then they show up in the last two as the second letter and the second letter. What place value, remember there's 28 letters in this verse. Notice he showed up third, and he showed up first, and he showed up second. There's, again, pointing to the complex unity, okay? 3 different, and he puts twice in each one. But where they show up in the Bible here is the third letter of Genesis 1:1, the 9th and 10th letters, the 15th letter, the 23rd letter, and the 26th letter. This is not the gematrias. This is where is it showing up in that verse. But if you add all those places together, it adds up to 86, which happens to be the same as Elohim. Now, this Aleph, it's a letter, but it's also a word, Aleph. Okay? And it's spelled Aleph, Lamed, Pei. We already talked about Aleph, Lamed. Aleph is head of the ox, strength, God. Lamed is shepherd's crook. Okay? So he's the strong shepherd. This is God. That's the picture. And Pei, 17th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the Pei is one of those that has a final form, depending on which, okay, it's either going to be the first, if it's the beginning of the word or the middle of the word, you use one shape. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay? But Pei, its letter represents mouth. Okay? So if you spell out Aleph, Aleph, Pei, Aleph, Lamed, Pei, the first two, Aleph, Lamed, is God, and Pei is mouth. So you're really showing here from the mouth of God. That's what Aleph spelled out is showing. Okay? Now that Pei, it shows up in two forms. You have a regular form if it's the first letter or in the middle of the word, and that's a closed mouth. And if it's the last letter of the word, looks like a backwards P kind of thing. That's the open mouth. And Pei will make one of two sounds. It can make the P sound, and it can also make, like in Panaim, Panaim is face, or it can make the F sound, as in Aleph, if it's the last letter, okay? And just the same in English, phone is a PH word, okay? It works. Okay, and so you got the idea of Pei. Genesis 1:1 begins with a bait. Wow. Why didn't God start it with his Aleph? No, he started it with a bait, pointing to Beit Resh, the son, and Beit, the house that he came to live in the person of the son. Aleph stays out front. And Aleph, when he's out in front, he's Aleph, Lamed, Pei. At one point, before he starts speaking Genesis 1:1, imagine the Pei is a closed mouth. The Beit from Bereshit fits perfectly nicely inside the opening of the Pei. See, the words are in his closed mouth. But then he's going to speak the words, and when he does, he puts the final Pei, open mouth. The Bereshit is Bereshit bara Elohim. The Torah is coming out of his mouth. It's the word of God coming out of his mouth. And the Aleph sits out in eternity past doing this. It's just beautiful that it all fits, right? And remember, Aleph was Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30, Pei is 80. Aleph adds up to 111, 111, which is 37 times 3. More 3s and 7s. Okay. Now, we told you that Yahweh added up to 26. Okay? And Elohim adds up to 86. If you add the two together and add it to Yeshua's name, Jesus, in Greek, which is New Testament, Greek is, they have this kind of gematria thing too. They don't call it gematria, but they do have the values, and you put it in there, his name adds up to 888. That's an 888. That's new beginning, new beginning, new beginning. That's the Messiah's number. He's bringing a new beginning. Okay? It'll be 7,000 years, and then eternity begins. The 8,000 years begins. Okay? 8 is always a new beginning. There were 8 people on the ark. New beginning. Okay? So, it's cool that if you take Yeshua's name and Elohim and Yahweh and add them together, you get 1,000, which Aleph is also 1,000 in Hebrew. It's 1, but there are times in the Tanakh where he uses it as 1,000. Okay? And it's the word they use for 1,000. Okay. The first three words of the Bible, Bereshit, bara, Elohim. Look at the last letters of each of those words. This is in the beginning, created God, the heavens and the earth. The first three words, the first word ends in a tav. The second word, bara, ends in a blue aleph. And the third word, Elohim, ends in a yellow mem. And mem is one of those letters that has two forms, so just look for the yellow one. It's the same, and it might be different shape in a minute. Okay? Those three letters, tav, aleph, mem, are the three letters you use to spell truth, emet, in Hebrew. Emet is aleph, mem, tav. So, you have truth, those first three letters of the first three words, the three ending, the last letters of the first three words are the letters for truth. They are just, I don't know, they're tohu bavohu. They're formless and void. They're mixed up, okay? The earth, it's the way the earth was at this point. If you go to the end of Creator Week, the very last verse, this would be Genesis chapter 2, verse 3, and God blessed the seventh day, and he sanctified it, because in it he rested from all the work which God had created to do. Okay? So God had created this work to do it. All right? Well, the last three words are bara, Elohim, lashot. So God had created to do, or to make. Those end with aleph, a blue aleph. Elohim ends in the yellow mem, and lashot ends in the red tav. Aleph, mem, tav, this spells truth. It's very clever. Truth was there at the beginning, but it was in chaos. But by the end of Creator Week, and God saw it was very good, truth is spelled out. It's there. You can do with it what you want. Okay? And just, this is going to be, I'm throwing this in for free. If you look at the word truth, here's the Hebrew alphabet. The word truth is an aleph, that's the first letter, a mem, that's the middle letter, and a tav, that's the last letter. If you want to know the truth, you need to look at the whole picture. The beginning, the middle, and the end. And you'll notice that each letter of truth stands on two legs. There's the verse in Deuteronomy, on the witness or testimony of two, a matter will be established. You have to have two legs, two pieces of evidence. And on truth here, every letter, the aleph stands on two legs, the mem and the tav, each on two legs. This is truth. And it turns out the word truth, amet, if you take aleph out of truth, aleph is God, remember? If you take aleph out of truth, you're left with met, death. I get it. The opposite of truth, just while we're here, we might as well show you, the opposite, no, I don't charge you for this one either. The opposite of truth is sheker. It's a shin, kuf, resh. If you look at the alphabet, they're not the last three, they're the last letter is a tav, come in one, and now you get the shin, the resh, and the kuf. Notice all three of them are lumped together. To look at them, you can make a little pinhole with your finger and look through, and you got tunnel vision, but you're seeing just those three letters. You're not seeing the whole truth. You're just seeing three. And the three that you're seeing are out of order. Sheker is one way, but in the alphabet, they're mixed. None of them are in the right place. So it's a lie in itself. And the three letters, a shin, is that W-y thing that comes down to a point. It's standing on one leg. A kuf, one leg. A resh, one leg. Every letter of sheker is standing on one leg. It's false. It doesn't have a leg to stand on. Okay, we talked about triangles, perfect triangles last time. I just want to just refresh you that you have to have a certain number of dots to make a triangle. 3 will make a nice one. That's the least. 6, 10, 15, 21, 28, 36, 45, 55. It keeps going up and up and up. Okay, you just add an extra bottom row, you get the next bigger one. It turns out that first word of the Bible, Bereshit, it's 6 letters. So you can take the letters from Bereshit and put it into a triangle. There's the Beit, and then the second row is Resh, Aleph, and the third is Shin, Yud, Tav. Bereshit, a triangle of 6 things. Okay? It turns out that 6 is also a perfect number. There aren't many of these, a number that's a perfect number, but if he's going to begin the Bible, he's going to begin with the word of the perfect number. A perfect number is a number where you take the factors of that number, and 6 is 6 times 1 and 2 times 3. That's the only way you can get 6. Factors, multiply. Take the factors and add them together, and you will get the original number. So the factors, you don't use the 6 obviously, but you take 1 plus 2 plus 3, you get 6. Very clever. If God's going to start the Bible, he might as well start with a perfect number that does that. And this is the first perfect number, 6. Okay? It turns out the entire verse of Genesis 1:1 is 28 letters. 28, if you remember, was a triangle number. So you can put the entire verse of Genesis 1:1 into a triangle. When you do, you end up with 3 sides, 3, 7 letters per side, there's your 7, and you have an inner triangle, which I made red, that's 3 plus 7, 10, okay? And 28 is also a perfect number. If you write down the factors of 28, now remember, he used the first word, a perfect number for that. Now this is the first verse. The whole first verse not requires, it deserves to be a perfect number, 28. 28 is 28 times 1, 2 times 14, 4 times 7. If you add those factors together, eliminating not the 28 of course, 1 and 2 and 14 and 4 and 7 is 28. Just to show you how rare these things are, the first 6 perfect numbers, 6, 28, 496, 8128, and numbers that I don't even want to read, big ones, okay? Those are the first 6. So he used the first 2 for his first verse and his first word. Very nice. Now, on those triangle numbers, if you take his name, Elohim, which we showed added up to 86 earlier, okay? It's the 1, 35, 10, and 40, little 3 letters, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yud, Mem. If you break them into groups of 3, which remember we told you he's a complex unity, and it's a good chance there's 3. Okay? But the first 3 is 1, 30, and 5. That is 36. 36 was a triangle number. The 3 middle ones, 35 and 10, is 45. The red one, that's a triangle number. This actually came from the first video, so you've already seen this, but it's going to get deeper, so I just want to repeat this. And the last 3, 5, 10, and 40 is 55. It's the bigger triangle. But these are all triangle numbers in his name here. If you add those 3 numbers together, you get 136. 136 is also a triangle number, in that the 55 is in the center, and it's surrounded by 36 yellow dots and 45 red dots. And it is a triangle number in itself. Very clever. Okay, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. If you put the gematria values for everything, I just put the totals of each word. The whole verse adds up to 2,701. We've talked about that in the last video. Keep that number in mind, 2701. It's Genesis 1:1. It's important. We're talking about these triangle numbers, and we said 36 was, and 45, and 55, and 28 was a triangle number. It turns out 2701 is a triangle number. It's a big triangle, It's so big, its bottom row has 73 dots across. There again is your 3 and your 7. Remember Genesis 1:1, it had its partner in John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word. We talked about it earlier with the pi and the e, natural logarithm. If you sum up all the words in John 1:1, it comes out to be 3627. Wouldn't it be cool if it made a triangle? If it's a triangle number? Before I tell you, I just want to show you this. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The word word, if you put it in Greek, it adds up to 373. And he has it 3 times in there. Again, so all this stuff with the gematria in the Hebrew, these are fingerprints that God's left for us to see. He also left a lot of these in Greek, in the Brit Hadashah, in the New Testament. Okay, so the 3627, it's not a triangle number. But you can make a very nice trapezoid that without any bits left over, okay? It's a nice, perfect trapezoid. It turns out that trapezoid fits beautifully underneath Genesis 1:1. I like that. That was cool, God. And the total number of dots for both is 6328, which of course is divisible by 7, 904. Okay, again, remember 2701 is the whole triangle. That's the whole Genesis 1:1. If I take just the last 2 words, va'et haaretz. Va'et is and et. Haaretz is the earth. Va'et is 407. Haaretz is 296. Together they add up to 703. If I make 703 dots, 703 is a triangle number. So the last 2 words of Genesis 1:1 is a triangle number, and that triangle happens to flip upside down and fit very nicely inside the triangle of 2701. When it does, it forms the 3 blue triangles, each one having 666 dots. It's a kind of a picture. Here's the earth in the center. And the earth in the center, and around it you're going to have 666, 666, 666. It's a picture maybe of Antichrist taking over at the end at some point, okay? But it's there. If I take the 8th, we keep talking about the first 7 words of the Bible. What if we take the 8th word of the Bible? What is the 8th word of the Bible? Okay. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. And the earth. In Hebrew, va haaretz. Va and ha the aretz, earth. But it's all one word, va haaretz. And the earth. And it adds up to, the tzadi is 90. The resh is 200, the aleph is 1, there's aretz. The hay is 5 and the vav is 6. It adds up to 302. If I add that to the 2701 from Genesis 1:1, I can put 4 more rows on my triangle. So he's showing that it does continue, it goes together. Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 are connected. Genesis 1:1 and John 1:1 are connected. That trapezoid fit nicely underneath that triangle. This is what he's saying to me. Hopefully you're listening too. And that total was, if you add them together, it came out to be 3003, which together, the first 8 words, it's divisible by 7 times 429. I got another freebie to throw in here. We talked in the first one about how many dots you need to make a Star of David. 13 dots, there's your 1 and 3. Okay, that's pointing to that complex unity of him. 37 dots, 73 dots, 337 dots. Okay, you hear these threes and sevens, but there's a really nice big one here called the 541 dot Star of David. You think 541 dots? What's so special about that? The word, name, title, Israel. Israel is Yud 10, Shin 300, Resh 200. That's 510 plus 1, 511. What? Oh, yeah, plus 30, 541. Israel adds up to 541, and that's a Star of David number. That's just nice. You know, gotta love the Jews, people. Gotta love them. Because God said to. That's why. Okay, so the whole verse adds up to 2701. Remember we covered it every which way but backwards? No, we did cover it backwards. In fact, let's look at it backwards again. There's a verse in Deuteronomy, this is God talking to Moses. And he tells Moses, and this is a messianic prophecy, he's talking about the Messiah here. I will raise up a prophet from among their countrymen like you, talking to Moses, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak to them all that I commanded him. So, God is telling Moses, this Messiah, I'm going to raise up this guy from among their countrymen. He's going to be Jewish. And he's going to be like you, Moses. That's a huge clue. If you go through and study the parallels between Yeshua and Moses, okay, Moses, we could do a 3-hour video on it. And you know what? We're going to. I already got it set up. I just need to film it. Okay. This prophet who is most like Moses from among their countrymen, that's Yeshua. He's Jewish. He's most like Moses. Okay, that's who he's talking about here. That's a prophecy from Deuteronomy. If you go back to Genesis 1:1, Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim, I'm going to take those 28 letters, I'm going to write them backwards, and I'm going to reparse them. We did this in the last video, but there's something coming deeper on this I want to show you. If you reparse the letters backwards, in Genesis 1:1, it says, behold my match, Moses, Moshe, a match of Yah. It's prophesying that the Messiah is going to be a twin, a match of Moses. Right? Or did I say that right? The Messiah will be a twin of Moses. That's neat. It's hiding stuff in there backwards. Okay? Well, keeping that in mind, that Yeshua and Moses are going to be twins somehow, whenever Moses goes up on the burning bush and he says, what is your name? And God says, I am that I am, in Hebrew, Eya, Asher Eya. If you put the gematria values into that, Eya is Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey. That's 21, just Eya. 21, by the way, is 3 times 7. Asher in the center is that's 501. And then you have a repeat of Eya, another 21. Eya, Asher, Eya. You got two 21s. By the way, 21 times 21 is 441, which is the value of Amet, truth. Just a nice little side thing there. Remember, Amet was 1, the first letter. Okay, and then it was a Mem, 40, and it was the last letter, Tav, 400, 441. That's 21 times 21. Okay, so Eya, Asher, Eya adds up to 543. Moses' name adds up to 345. And if these two are going to be twins, if Eya, Asher, Eya, if Yahweh, if this guy, this God in the burning bush, if that's Yahweh, and his Hashem also 345, Hashem, same letters as Moses, Moshe. If this Yahweh, the hand reveals, the nail reveals, If he's 543 and Moshe is 345, and they're going to be somehow parallel, when you add those together, you get 888, which again is Jesus in the Greek, the new beginning. Okay? It's a nice picture that God has put there that I'm seeing. By the way, notice his number, that 543, 543. They're in order. But if you remember your Pythagorean theorem, the 345, 543 is the smallest Pythagorean triple. Okay, now we're getting into the math section of the show. But it's easy math. 345 is the smallest Pythagorean triple. If you have a right triangle and the small sides are 3 and 4, you can find out the hypotenuse, the long side, the diagonal, by plugging it into this great formula that Pythagoras comes up with, or Pythagoras, as some places in the world I'm trying to tell them about Pythagoras and they have no idea what I'm talking about, and all of a sudden they go, oh, Pythagoras! Yes, Pythagoras. And he says that if you take 3 on one side and 4 on the other, you put a squared plus b squared, 3 squared plus 4 squared, that's 9 plus 16, that's c squared will be 25. Well, I don't want c squared, I want to know what c is. So what squared equals 25? You're taking the square root of 25, which will be 5. There's your basic, I already taught this to a lot of you kids, I'm going to teach it again. Okay, so 345 is the smallest Pythagorean triple. Let's go back to Genesis 1:1, which is the whole theme of this video. And I want you to see what he's done here. If you start with the 4th letter, so I'm going to take the first 3 letters, Bereshit, Beit, Resh, Aleph. Start with the 4th letter as a Shin. I have it in red, okay, and I put a little arrow down. Then I'm going to jump ahead 7 letters. When I jump ahead 7 letters, I get that yellow Lamed in Elohim. If I jump ahead another 7 letters, I get the blue Shin in Hashemayim. And go ahead another 7 letters, I get the purple Hey in Haaretz, the last word. Well, those 4 letters, Shin, Lamed, Shin, Hey, is a Hebrew word. And how do we get it? We skipped ahead every 7 letters. 7, huh? And you know what the Hebrew word is? It's Sheloshah, which means 3. So again, he's hiding 3 and 7 in Genesis 1:1. He's hiding the word 3 every 7 letters apart. And look where he's hidden it. It's completely centered in the verse, because you take off the first 3 letters and look at the last 3 letters. He's got 3 letters on both sides, and in the middle it spells 3 every 7 letters. There's some uniformity here. There's some, it's a God incidence, not a coincidence. Okay? Next, let's look at that 3 and 7. We talked about Pythagoras and his theorem, right? Let's take that 3 and 7 that we just had and put it into a right triangle. The small side is 3, the long side is 7, or the middle side. And now we want to find out c, the hypotenuse. So you plug it in, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A squared 3 squared is 9. 7 squared is 49. So you add them together, you're going to get c squared equals 58. So what times itself equals 58? It's not one that I can do in my head. Your calculator can, it's a square root, but it'll suffice to say the answer is the square root of 58. Okay, well, I don't know what to do with that, but God does. And what he did with it was, notice where it spelled the word 3. It was the 4th letter was a Shin, and then 7 more is the 11th letter, and 7 more is the 18th letter, and 7 more is the 25th letter. If you add the place values of those that spell Sheloshah, 25 plus 18 plus 11 plus 4 equals 58, which is the hypotenuse, square root of 58 there, with the 3, 7, square root of 58 triangle. It's a right triangle. He's hidden the Pythagorean theorem right there in Genesis 1:1. Amazing. Okay, Genesis 1:1 adds up to 2701. It has 7 words, right? There's another verse that adds up to 2701 in the Bible, and it has 8 words. It's Genesis 8:14. We've just had the flood, and the ark has landed, and they've got off the ark, all's well. And here it is, Genesis 8:14. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Do you realize what this is? This is a new beginning. It's 2701 was Genesis 1:1. God created the heavens and the earth. Here he's not creating the heavens and the earth, but it is a new beginning of the heavens and the earth. The earth was dry. He wiped out all the old. We're starting new. And it's 8 words in Hebrew to explain that. So there's a parallel between this verse in Genesis 1:1, and they both add up to 2701, and they both start talking about new beginnings, really. Okay, we mentioned earlier that Yahweh added up to 26. The Yud was 10, Hey is 5, Vav is 6, Hey is 5. That's Yahweh, no problem there. Okay, and we talked about El. El is Aleph Lamed. Aleph Lamed, El, God. Elohim is short for Elohim. Look at the Aleph. Aleph is actually made up of 3 letters. It's made up of a Vav and 2 Yuds. We talked about this in video 1, but I just want to say it real quick again. The Yuds are hands. You have God's hand reaching down. You have man's hand reaching up. God is perfect. Man is sinful. They can't reach each other. We need somehow a mediator to connect us. So you take a Vav. A Vav was a nail, but Vav is also an upright man. It's the 6th letter. 6 is the number of man. And if that upright man would humble himself, then the 2 Yuds can connect. That's a picture of God here, that he would humble himself in the form of Yeshua, and so that man and God can connect. Okay? And when you express it this way, the Vav is a 6, humbled. And the 2 Yuds are each 10. 10 and 10 is 20, and the Vav is 6. The Aleph, even though Aleph is 1, it's always 1, it's 1, 1, it's 1, right? He's 1, he's first. But the letters in Aleph add up to his name, 26. Okay, in his Aleph. Now the Lamed is actually made up of a Kaf, because Lamed by itself, its gematria is 30. But it's made up of a Kaf with a Vav on top. The Kaf is 20, the Vav again is 6. So the elements that make up a Lamed add up to 26. So it's kind of clever. El, that's his title, El. El by itself is 30 and 1, 31. But each element of El, the Aleph and the Lamed, each break down into 26, which ties in with his name 26. Keep in mind, you think, well, 26, why is God's name 26? You know what? He's God. This is what it is. And you're going to see it weaving a lot more. So just get used to it. God's name 26. Okay? Okay. Now, just coincidence, because this gematria stuff doesn't work in English, right? This is a Hebrew thing. But if you take the English alphabet, American alphabet, English alphabet, and God is D is the 4th letter, G is the 7th letter, O is the 15th. Those 3 add up to 26 also in English. So he made that coincidence happen. He's God, right? Okay. So Yahweh, God, 26, no problem. And I've gone and I've written each of the letters there, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. But you realize that Yod, the first letter, Yod is a letter, but it's also a word, the word Yod. Okay? And I've spelled it down below it. It's a Yod, Vav, and a Dalet. Right? And then I spelled out Hey and Vav and an Hey. Let's just talk about the Yod for a minute. We said Yod was a hand. Okay, it's the smallest Hebrew letter. It does not touch the line. It floats above the line. Yod is a very special letter. Very small, the smallest, floating. It's a hand reaching down. Okay, its ancient picture is with the elbow and the thumbs. You can see a hand, that's what it is. Okay. He starts his name, Yahweh, with a Yod. He starts his son's name, Yeshua, with a Yod. He starts his city, Yerushalayim, with a Yod. Yod is big, considering it's small. Okay? And Yod, its gematria is 10, its place value is 10. That's Yod. But if we take Yod and spell it out, it's Yod, Vav, Dalet. Well, Yod was 10, Vav is 6, Dalet is 4. You see what I'm doing? Even though Yod is 10, the letters that make up the word Yod add up to 20. That's interesting. Okay? Notice each of the three letters that make up the word Yod. It's a Yud. The Yud was the tiny little letter. Then it's a Vav. The Vav was the nail or the upright man. And then there was the Dalet. The Dalet was like two sticks that crossed. It's perfect that God would take this teeny tiny letter to express himself when he didn't have to. He could pick a big letter, but he didn't need to. He took the tiniest little letter, and in that letter it's expressing look at the three letters. Yod is a dot. It has no dimension. The second letter is a Vav. The Vav is a vertical line. It's now one dimension. And then the third letter is a Dalet. The Dalet would be two-dimensional. I can just see the Big Bang. There was nothing there. There was nothing. And then he bara. He created from nothing. From a point. From Yud, it went to one dimension, Vav. And then it went to two-dimension, Dalet. And it went to how many dimensions? I don't know. You know, this is what scientists are trying to do. We know the three dimensions, length, width, and breadth, and we have a fourth dimension, time. That's what we're living in, these four dimensions. You know, scientists have been trying to put together one equation that captures it all. It has your length and width and breadth and time, and it accounts for gravity, and it accounts for the other factors that are just out there that you don't even know about, you know. Pi and E is going to probably be working in there. Or you got the electromagnetic force and the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. You got all these different forces, and there should be one equation that puts it all together. And that's what scientists would love to do and figure out, mathematicians or whoever. But they're having trouble doing it because you can't do it with these just these four, what do you call them? 4 dimensions. You know, if you figured it out that there were 10 dimensions, you could do them. They could come up with something. Okay, and they're theorizing that there probably are 10 dimensions. Okay, well this word kind of points that out to you. If you just look at the three letters, Yud, Vav, Dalet, Yud is 10, Vav is 6, Dalet is 4. There are 10 dimensions. Yud, there's with the Yud, the God. Okay, 6 Vav we don't see, and 4 we do. It could be, you know. The other 6 are curled up somewhere, small or something. I don't know what they are. You know what? People laugh at Christians like, oh, you and your silly faith, and you have a lot of faith to believe that. No. This is so in your face that faith is easy on this. You know, I was reading this article the other day, and the guy was saying, oh, there's no God, and his proof was some stupid red dwarf or brown dwarf or some kind of a star 90 billion miles away. What? What? This is what you're going to base eternity on somebody's evidence of a star or some red dwarf 90 billion miles. Give me strength. You know, this, if you don't admit that someone outside of this universe wrote this, idiot. That's it. Okay, anyway, let's go back to Yahweh and take the values of each word spelled out. Yod, we said, was 20. Hey is Hey Aleph. 5 and 1 is 6. Vav is Vav Aleph Vav. 13. And another Hey. Hey Aleph. Another 6. If I add Yahweh up as we did originally, it's 26. But if I add up all the parts of each letter, it adds up to 45. Now, there's no other way to add these up. There's only, you can add them up directly, or you can spell them out and add them up. Okay, we've done both. We already showed 26, that's El, that's God, right? Well, that 26 is pointing to God, God, God. What's the 45 pointing to? Okay, it turns out the word man is, in Hebrew, is Adam. It's an Aleph, a Dalet, and a Mem. 1, 4, and 40. The word man, Adam, adds up to 45. Isn't it just clever of God that his Yahweh would add up to 26, which points to the Aleph and the Lamed and God, 26, 26. Yahweh is God. But Yahweh also adds up to 45 because Yahweh is also man. Yahweh, Yud-He, Vav-He. This is pointing to Yeshua. He became a man to become our sacrifice, so he would take the punishment and we don't have to. That's very clever of him. And this next slide I'm going to show you here, this is a little complicated. We'll leave it up on the screen for a bit here. Look in the center first. You have very center, you have Yahweh. And you have God points up, and you have man pointing down. If you go up, you see all the way things, God, Aleph, Lamed, 26, Yahweh, 26. Yahweh is God, but he's also 45. He's also Adam, man. There's no other way to interpret it. And these two, 45 and 26, let me at least say them in the right order. 26 and 45. 26, God first. If I square 26, I get 676. If I square 45, I get 2025. And you add them together, you get, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. 2701. Well, I don't know what time it is. Do you have enough for today? You want one more? Because I'm ready to go. I need to eat. I need to drink. First of all, to God be the glory for all of this. This is just unbelievable, you know. And if you're an atheist, you can't deny that someone outside of our space and time wrote this. If you're a Muslim watching this, you need to ask yourself, does my Quran do this? Because if the Quran is God's later book, if he did this in the early book, I haven't found it in the Quran, any later book, okay? So it might make you wonder, okay, there is a God, but it's the God who wrote this book. Now, if you're a Jewish person watching this video, there's a lot of signs pointing to Yeshua being the Mashiach. If you're a Christian watching this video, you know, it doesn't matter. You guys argue about, oh, I only use King James. I'm only using NIV. This is the good translation. The Dewey Reams is the way to... No, listen. This is the Hebrew. None of this you get out of King James. I'm sorry, you don't. This is God's language. He talks about in Zephaniah 3:9 that he's going to turn back a pure language in the end of days. We're there. This is it. Learn Hebrew. Or just learn the alphabet, the Aleph-Bet at least. Okay, I'm going to leave you with one last fun. And again, to God be the glory and the honor and the praise, because this is just so cool that he does this. The last one is, we talked about bara. Bara is to create out of nothing, okay? And Aleph we know is God. So if you put those together, bara, it'd be like saying Aleph, God creates, okay? God creates. No question there, okay? Earlier we talked about Debar. Remember we mentioned Debarim was Deuteronomy? It was Debarim. Debar is words, speaking, and Debarim was words, putting the plural on it. Okay, so to Debar is to speak, and if I put an Aleph after it, it would be like God speaks. Okay, Debar. It doesn't matter in Hebrew whether you put the verb first or the noun first. It works either way, nicely. Okay, so Debar Aleph. That would be God speaks. In Hebrew, you have a letter Kaf. We talked about the Kaf. Remember, it was the Kaf with the Vav on top that made the Lamed. Okay? And the Kaf's picture is an open hand. And it's used in Hebrew as the word as. You know, it's as cold as, it's as hot as. You put a ka in there, that's as. Okay? So if we put these all together, we can say God creates as God speaks. Because all this stuff that you're seeing in Genesis 1:1, he didn't plot and plan this. He just opened his mouth and it all came out. And pi showed up, and e, and the Pythagorean theorem, and all of this stuff just was, all the sevens and all the threes and all the 37s. He creates as he speaks. Bara ka dabara. Abracadabra. God bless.